Hey everyone, my name is Angus Wright. I also go by Angus by Design, and this is a practice that I like to do for my own wellness. And the goal for me is to take the next hour, the next 60 minutes. I'm going to read from this book. It's called Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. And it was published in 1994. And it says, the fruit of some 20 years experience leading Buddhist meditation retreats, this book touches on a wide range of topics raised repeatedly by meditators and includes favorite stories, key Buddhist teachings, and answers to the most asked questions. And Joseph Goldstein, if you haven't heard of him, he's a co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, where he is one of the resident guiding teachers. This was written in the 90s. He's still very much alive, still very much doing what he does. And so if any of this resonates with you, I discovered him through the teachings of Ram Dass, and the lectures, and the community. So if you want to kind of check out ramdas.org, there's a bunch of podcasts. But if you Google the guy, if you look him up, if you check out any of the spaces that you navigate, you'll be able to access a whole bunch of information about him. And then the other part of my practice is to pull a card from the Gaia Oracle. And essentially, Gaia is from the Greek. She's known as the goddess of the earth. I use this as a tool. I love to take a look at, what is the card saying? Like, what's the meaning behind the card? And then also the artist, who is Tony Carmine Salerno. He's an intuitive artist and an author born in Melbourne, Australia. So it's kind of a cool practice to be able to take what one guy says in this book and then reflect on, how does that tie into sort of an act of chance, right? And the cards are a great way of shuffling and then getting sort of like a sense of like mystery and spontaneity. Another layer of this. So I'm turning 50 next month. I'm entering March is my birthday month. So if you want to get to know me and my neuroses or my schmooze or my quirks or any of those things, by all means, feel free to stick around, because I've been very radically just out there. It just is who I am. I don't, I may be full of crap, but I can't bullshit anybody. I don't have it in me to mislead anyone. So everything that I do is a practice of just sharing and caring. So if any of it resonates with you, please feel free to enjoy the time and space. I'm wearing, this is kind of, a little side twist, but I just got this hoodie yesterday. It says big change starts small. And I got it while thrifting. So I paid $10 for this sweater, which I really dig. It's it says it's 10. What is it? 10 tree. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I love a good bargain. I love a good hoodie, and I love my dog. Right, Bo? Bo is going to probably be encouraging me to go outside after this. So after I do this, we're definitely going to go. It is a gorgeous, bright, sunny day, and I love me some coffee. I love me a good breakfast sandwich. And I live in Ottawa, Canada, and there's always something to see or do here. So none of this is meant to tell you what to say or what to think, or to give you the impression that I know something you don't know. I truly believe in peer support. I truly believe we are all the experts in ourselves. And this is literally how I use TikTok. So again, please just use the tools the way you see it, the way it resonates with you, and just share the space with me. I'll pause in between some parts. I might take a drink or something. You might see me choke out because I'm like perpetually dry. But for inspiration, yesterday I went to a really cool event in Ottawa. The Ottawa Police Service was having a come work for Ottawa Police. It was a bit of a job fair. It was a bit of a presentation. They did a very powerful presentation about 30 forward. So if that is something that resonates with you, I think it's really worth getting to know what we think or feel or believe these things mean. And I encourage people to look beyond the surface, look beyond the initial judgments. But this is a lanyard that I got there, and it says, what is possible at Ottawa Police Service. And to me, what I really dig, so I love swag. First of all, I got a mug too, and a journal and a pen, and I would have taken more if I wasn't so shy and bashful. But I just love the fact that the first 3 words is what is possible. So I'm going to take that for inspiration. I'm going to take, what does it look like to be present? The focus here and the goal here is to be grounded and present. And I encourage you to try to be grounded and present wherever you are. And definitely to look at what is possible. And so insight meditation, if you're not a hippie like me, if you weren't born in the 70s like I was, insight meditation is essentially the act of trying to just follow what we're thinking, and then try to create like an observation of that, try to understand where that fits into everything. So I'm not a psychologist. I'm not I don't make money off of any of this. I'm not searching for any of this. I have been and am and will be a certified Reiki master practitioner since 2007, so 19 years, I think. And Reiki essentially is Japanese for universal life energy. It was developed by someone named Dr. Mikao Usui, who, when back in his day, he was a highly academic person who went on a spiritual journey. He learned from other cultures, other experiences, observing things himself, and then he cultivated a personal practice around that, and he developed it into tools and a ritual, sort of speak, in order to teach his students and then to share it amongst other people. So if I think of it in terms of my progress with Reiki, I took 3 levels of education. First one focusing on figuring out what the heck it even was. The second part of it, learning to practice on others. And the third, learning to be a mentor in that, or a practitioner, or to treat others, or to teach others how to use it for themselves. And for me, I get judged for being a Reiki master. I get judged for being somebody who's a yoga or yogi practitioner. I get judged for just about a lot of things. But for me, it's literally just, how do we learn to take our thoughts, see what they are, catch them, figure them out, and then how do we kind of apply it to how we show up, not only for ourselves, self-care, self-love, making sure we're not getting into trouble, so to speak, but then also how do we actually apply that and connect to other people. So it can be family, friends, community, the bigger like WTF of living today's life. So I'm really glad that you're here. I know I've talked quite a bit, but that's okay. It's part of my practice where it's kind of like just getting grounded, just sort of stating what the purpose is. And so, having said that, I'm gonna start to read from this book. And so it's part 4. If you want to see the previous ones, I've uploaded them to YouTube. I also try to keep it under an hour so I can repost it here. But hopefully we'll talk about and hear about the ego and self, personality and transformation, and depending on how fast I read, maybe we'll also get to psychotherapy and meditation. And then after that's yogi mind. Oh, maybe I can get through the whole friggin' thing. Let's see. I don't know. I've only been able to read, again, like books. Part of this practice, part of the goal I originally had was so that I could actually read books again. I live with acronyms like ADHD, BPD, PTSD. I support the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, and hey, the alphabet contains LMNOP, but that's just me. So let's check it out. Psychology and Dharma. See how I can talk forever. Let's see. So, and if you would like to add sort of like another element to the practice, I'm noticing I'm really dark. The sun's really messing. But what you could do is you could try to check in with your breath. And all that means is not necessarily trying to change it or force it into something, but just sort of, with your mind's eye or thinking in your head, go, how am I breathing? What does that look like? And so you can check in with that. I also encourage you to get 1% more comfortable wherever you are. So if you're sitting, just adjust yourself in your seat. If you're walking, walk with a pace that's comfortable. If you're laying down, do what you gotta do. Whatever's happening, just see if you can get 1% more comfortable. All right. So ego and self. So in a sense, we can see most of the Buddhist teachings as a subtle and profound psychology of freedom. They explore the mind in depth and describe how mind creates our world, our body, our actions, and even our physical environment, and the events that happen to us. If the Dharma is a spiritual psychology, How does it relate to Western concepts of the mind? Treating Buddhist and Western psychology together makes a vast topic. Here, I would like to just touch on a few distinctions that may be important to people interested in this interface. So, one such distinction is an apparent contradiction between Buddhist and Western conceptions of ego and self. Now, Western, in reference to this, is referring to North America, essentially. So the East being, the other side of the hemisphere, and then us over here in the West. So Canada, US, Mexico, that sort of thing. So the Dharma teaches that reality is egoless, absent of self, while Western psychology speaks of the need to build a strong ego structure, a healthy self. That apparent contradiction can be confusing, but this dilemma comes only from our use of language. We use the words ego and self one way in Western psychology and another way in the Buddha's teachings. In the Western psychological sense, ego and self refers to a certain kind of balance and strength in the mind. Having a strongly developed ego in that sense is essential to our basic well-being. We have to have that balance in order to function in the world as harmonious human beings. People with an underdeveloped or misperceived sense of self cannot operate well in the world or be at peace within themselves. So the Buddha's use of the word self is different from this concept of balance or mental emotional maturity. When he refers to self, he is talking about an idea or concept we hold of an unchanging essence to whom experience is happening. So when he talks about the absence of self, or anatta in Pali, he means understanding that experience does not refer back to anyone. And this is the crucial transformative understanding that grows so deep in our practice. Insight means seeing clearly and deeply that everything in the mind and the body is a changing process, and that there is no one behind it to whom it is happening. The thought is the thinker. There is no thinker apart from the thought itself. It is anger that is angry and feeling the feels. And feeling that feels. So everything is just what it is. Only what it is, that's my brain. So everything is just what it is and only what it is. Experience does not belong to anyone. It is precisely that extra and mistaken process of referral back to someone, to some notion of a core being, that creates what the Buddha called ego or I. We superimpose an idea of ego or self on top of a reality that is actually selfless and egoless. The processes of both developing a strong ego structure and seeing the selfless nature of experience are quite complementary, although the words sound contradictory. A healthy sense of self develops through learning to see clearly and accepting all the different parts of who we are. Realizing the emptiness of self comes from not adding the burden of self-identification with those parts. Self-acceptance is really an aspect of mindfulness. Being mindful means we are willing to experience all emotions, thoughts, sensations, and events of life. This acceptance creates a strong foundation of confidence because we heal the internal split by learning to be with the whole package. My gosh, and my computer went to sleep. I gotta figure that out. It only seems to happen during these. I'm fairly new to this going live here, so bear with me. Bada boom, bada bing. Don't know how I suddenly turned into a commercial. But here I'm back. So where was I? See how like the Dharma or the universe can distract us? So self-acceptance. Oh, wait a minute. The whole package. But sometimes a feeling of struggle occurs in practice because something is going on in the body, in the emotions, or in thoughts that we cannot open to. We do not like certain emotions: anger, unworthiness, depression, despair, loneliness, boredom, or fear. We may find it difficult to accept that shadow side of ourselves. When these feelings come up and we find ourselves struggling, it is not because of what they are, but because of our unwillingness at that time to be accepting. So the same can be said of certain physical sensations. When body sensations become too intense or painful, we close off, we resist, we pull back. When we develop mindfulness, we grow in self-acceptance in the broadest possible sense. So we learn to accept the fullness of our experience, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant. So based on this acceptance, we can then bring a very focused awareness to seeing the impermanent, momentary nature of all these parts of ourselves. We can see that all of the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations are momentary, constantly in flux. We can be with them without identification and see that they do not belong to anyone, that they are simply transient phenomena arising and passing away. So insight into anatta, into selflessness, grows out of self-acceptance. A healthy self and an empty self are not contradictory. It just appears so because we use the same language to describe two different things. The whole path of meditation is about understanding that the self as an unchanging entity is a fiction, an illusory mental construct. But in order to realize this truth, we need the kind of balance that Western psychology means when it talks about a strong ego. So without qualities of balance and strength in the mind, it is impossible to see that there is no one unchanging self to whom experience happens. So you can say, juggling the two distinct meanings of the word, that in order to give up the ego, you first need to develop one. Whew. All right. Well, thank you for sticking with me so far. I'm warming up to that. We're going to be looking at personality and transformation next. The goal being to read and then pull a Gaia card for reflection. So it's great to have everybody here. Please feel free to shift and do all the do. If you're looking around my room, you'll see my dog Bo. He's a Dalmatian laying on a leopard print heated pad. Oh, I'm noticing my magnets are maybe a little too adult for prime time. And this is a little monkey Little brass monkey looking in a mirror. This is an artist named Nelson Sullivan, a poster from a comedy show I once produced. And then this is a book called Family Wrap, which is Wellness Recovery Action Plan. So as a side note, I'm an advanced facilitator of crisis planning programs that's actually rooted in people with lived experience. So personality and transformation, what we call personality is the habit of patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior that have been conditioned throughout our lives. In my experience, both with my Dharma teachers and with students, there is no one Dharma personality type. The practice does not make our personality a certain way. Some practitioners are very cool, some are passionate, some are humorous and light. Others are earnest and sober. You find every type of person practicing on this path. It may be good news to you or bad, but many aspects of our personality seem to be consistent throughout our practice. So a funny story from the Buddha's time illustrates this consistency. A group of monks who were arhats, fully enlightened, were walking through the woods and came to a stream. All the monks walked through the water with great decorum, except for one of them who just hiked up his robes, took a running start, and jumped over the stream. The other monks were upset, insofar as enlightened beings can be upset. They went to the Buddha to complain to him about their colleagues' indecorous behavior. He was, after all, supposed to be fully enlightened too. The Buddha smiled and said that the monk had been a monkey for 500 previous lifetimes. Jumping over the stream just expressed his personality after all those lifetimes of conditioning. So you can see, by the way, that this story has interesting implications for a Buddhist theory of the evolution of individuals complementary to Darwin's evolution of species. This continuity of personality behavior notwithstanding, there are also dimensions of profound change. As we deepen in practice, we start relating to our personality traits in a different way. Instead of our being so tightly bound up and identified with our identity, our personality conditioning occurs in a much more spacious field. The particular personality forms may still play themselves out, but they are less, or they are taken less to be me or I. Practice brings about attunement to the subtler aspects of energy as it manifests on all levels: thought, emotion, body. We really begin to feel things in a much fuller way than when our mind is scattered and distracted. So the result is a kind of passion in dispassion. Dispassion, in this sense, does not mean no emotion. It means that we are no longer so identified. We no longer create a strong sense of I in the emotions, the thoughts, the sensations of the body. It is all still happening, but it is happening in a much vaster field of awareness because it is not so constricted by the sense of self. I have to pause here because part of my life is being a 55-year-old. Or no, I'm not 55. My gosh, I'm already aging myself. I'm 49 going on 50. But that comes with the development. I need a haircut, number one. But I am getting tickled up in the up in the nose area, so bear with me because it was driving me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But welcome. So we're about halfway point. Just reading from the book, Insight Meditation, and then going to pull a card. Practice brings about attunement to the subtler aspects of energy as it manifests on all levels: thought, emotion, and body. We really begin to feel things in a much fuller way than when our mind is scattered and distracted. The result is a kind of passion and dispassion. Dispassion, in this sense, does not mean no emotion. It means that we are no longer so identified. We no longer create a strong sense of I in the emotions, the thoughts, the sensations of the body. It is all still happening, but it is happening in a much vaster field of awareness because it is not so constricted by the sense of self. As a practice matures and the wisdom and compassion grow, a transformation of character begins to take place within the framework of our individual personalities. So unskillful and thoughtless patterns of behavior fall away, and each of us in our own way increasingly manifests greater loving care. So through the transformative workings of the Dharma, our thought patterns, our emotions, and our behaviors become far more fluid and malleable than when we live in unawareness. So most people believe that we are the thoughts that come through our mind. I hope not, because if we are in big trouble. Those thoughts coming through have clearly been conditioned by something, by different events in our childhood, our environment, our past lives, or even some occurrence that has happened 2 minutes before. The quality of our character, and indeed the whole question of our freedom or bondage, hinges on what choices we make with respect to these thoughts. So here's where mindfulness gives us so much strength and freedom, because mindfulness allows us the possibility of not just acting habitually or blindly on the energy of all those uninvited thoughts. Rather, it empowers us to choose wisely. Even if we have chosen wrongly in the past, in the moment of awakening to the possibility of mindfulness and right action in that moment, what we could call a character shift or character change takes place. One story from the Buddhist time illustrates just how dependent on conditions character is, and how we can come out of that conditioning through wise attention. A bright young student of the time went to study with a famous teacher, and he soon became by far the most brilliant of the teacher's students. Many of his classmates became jealous and worked to poison the teacher's mind against him. Finally, the teacher, fearing that this brilliant student would soon displace him, kicked him out and sent him away. This injustice must have awakened in the young man some very deep old patterns of conditioning of hatred, anger, and violence, on which he then acted blindly. He vowed to get revenge in a particularly gruesome form, to create a garland of 1,000 fingers from 1,000 victims to present to his teacher. Thus he came to be known as Angulimala, which means garland of fingers. So Angulimala that's a tongue twister, proceeded along this very fierce, very violent path. He became the scourge of the kingdom after Angulimala had killed 999 people. His mother, who had set out to find him, came walking through the forest where he lived. He was about to kill her to complete his garland. Somehow, at that moment, the Buddha, who was in the vicinity, came to know what was about to happen, and through his psychic powers, he appeared in front of the young man. Well, I'll get the 1,000th finger from this fellow instead, Angulimala thought, and he ran after him. So even though the Buddha was walking very slowly because of the Buddha's psychic powers, and Angulimala could not catch up no matter how fast he ran. Finally, I'm going to just call him Angu at this point. Angu shouted, "Stop!" The Buddha replied, "I have stopped. It is you who have not stopped." Just in that moment, affected by the fearlessness, the peace, and the compassion of the Buddha, Angu stopped running and asked what he meant. The Buddha taught him about stopping the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, and Angu touched to the core by the Buddha's presence and words, made a different choice, which transformed his character. He followed the Buddha to the monastery, became a monk, and within a short time attained full enlightenment. So there is hope for all of us. This story points out dramatically how we have different seeds of conditioning in our mind, and how in our long evolution through lifetimes, we have done so many things automatically in reaction to conditions. There are wholesome seeds and there are unwholesome seeds. When conditions are favorable, we generally act in one way. When conditions are unfavorable, we often act in another. It can go on for lifetime after lifetime, until mindfulness awakens us to the possibility of actually making a choice. In that great power of mindfulness and choice lies our true character and our true strength. Hoo-wee! So that's a big one. Let's see, how much more? I don't know if I can. So we're like 38 minutes in. I'm going to try to power through this, okay? Because I kind of want to leave like 10 minutes to pull the card for from the Gaia for reflection. But if you're still here, if you're joining, again, just sort of check in with your breath. How can you sort of get more comfortable? If what I'm saying is boring, tune it out, listen to the sound of my voice. If you want to do another type of insight meditation, you can actually just focus on all of me, or focus on the different parts of the space. It isn't about judging what we're thinking or feeling in the moment. It's really about just trying to recognize that we are thinking and feeling in the moment. So oh my gosh, this is my brain. See why I have to practice? Psychotherapy and meditation. I'm just going to move this around so that my computer doesn't freeze again, and yada, yada, yada. I'm almost 50, okay? Technology is not necessarily with me. So, we can often confuse certain activities of mind with meditation practice. The clearer we are about the differences among various mental modes, the more effective and powerful we can make our practice. People sometimes wonder if they might use meditation as a time to delve into old memories or traumas, to explore specific conflicts or feelings. In other words, can meditation serve as a form of psychotherapy? Psychotherapy has tremendous value, but the meditative track is something different. The two modes are not opposed and not in conflict, and indeed, they sometimes overlap, but to the extent that we become enmeshed or entangled in the content or storyline of our thoughts and emotions, we will be hindered from developing the kind of insight that are unique to meditation. So many different kinds of psychological understandings might arise during meditation, but such things as our parents, our childhood, and the way we relate to other people. Although this level of psychological inquiry is valid and extremely important, we do not want to divert the mind to that particular area of investigation during meditation practice. A great range of emotions appear during meditation: interest, desire, anger, fear, sadness, depression, elation, excitement, boredom, anxiety, happiness, gratitude, love. At different times, each of these and more will be felt quite strongly. The key question is, how do we relate to what is arising? Are we relating to these emotions by thinking about them or analyzing them? Or are we relating by simply feeling and observing? So the emphasis in meditation is very much on undistracted awareness, not thinking about things, not analyzing, not getting lost in the story, but just seeing the nature of what is happening in the mind. Careful, accurate observation of the moment's reality is the key to the whole process. Because our personal stories are so fascinating and interesting, it is helpful to practice the not now technique of noticing during meditation practice. Whenever your mind becomes fascinated by a particular story, simply say mentally, not now. This method is a gentle way of acknowledging the story's presence and even its value, and also for the moment putting it aside. Besides the need to practice bare attention without becoming enmeshed in the storyline of our life, there is another important reason not to use meditation as therapy. The meditative process uncovers many deep levels of emotions, different energies, centers in the body, and new experiences of the momentariness of phenomena. At times it's exhilarating and at times fearful. One of the great protections in this vast exploration is the fact that the meditative path is an organic unfolding. We are not choosing or selecting what will arise in the mind. We have no particular agenda. Instead, we experience an underlaying, an opening, and things arise naturally in their own time. Because of this natural unfolding, we find that mindfulness is usually strong enough to deal with whatever comes up. Sometimes it might seem like a close battle, and we wonder whether our mind is going to be strong enough to go through the inevitable storms. But because we are engaged in such organic process where we do not force or dig or choose, though these different psychological patterns arise with a kind of aptness that makes them workable. And they are rendered workable precisely by our ability simply to note them, to be with them, and to not let them go, without elaboration, without fuss, Otherwise, we can become involved in a project mentality where the mind is all set to work on a problem. That mentality can just create more of a sense of struggle, more of a sense of self, and cause us to lose the sense of the natural unfolding of this whole process. Moreover, if we force some of these powerful issues into our psyche instead of letting them arise naturally, we may overwhelm ourselves by what comes up. It is neither helpful nor necessary to create polarity or conflict between these two areas or levels of mind, the meditative and the psychological. The psychological domain of understanding is of great importance in our lives, and it provides a valuable complement to what we learn in meditation. And there are many techniques of psychological investigation that may serve the purpose of this understanding much better than meditation. When we are investigating our psychological patterns, then we should use the tools that are most appropriate to that work. The purpose of disciplined meditation practice is to stabilize awareness and open to the essential nature of mind. Once we become established in our meditation, then we are really seeing the momentary arising and passing of phenomena and the nature of awareness itself. We are not dealing so explicitly with the specific content of our conditioning. Rather, we are much more attuned to the transitory, selfless nature of phenomena. So we may go quite deep in our practice and even reach levels of genuine realization. But these moments of awakening may not solve everything. Most often, we then find another whole task of integrating our new insights and awareness into all other areas of our lives, including the psychological. Despite our deep insight, we may see patterns on the content level that negatively affect our relationships, our lives, and that we might fruitfully explore in order to make life easier for ourselves and the people around us. Even deeply experienced meditators may feel the need to work productively on the psychological level. So there can be a wonderful interplay between these two levels of mind. The more clarity and maturity we have on the psychological level, the easier it is to settle into the meditative process, simply seeing the arising and vanishing of experience, because we do not so often become stuck struggling with the contents, with emotional conflict. Conversely, the more insight we have in the meditation process, the easier it is to go back and work on psychological content without it being so knotted. The psychological knots untie much more easily because we've seen the essential selflessness and emptiness of all things. Some years ago, I entered Jungian therapy, which involved a lot of dream analysis. As the therapy progressed, I began to explore some of the dark shadow side of my mind and heart. Two major insights came out of that time. And while both are obvious intellectually, they are hard to embody experientially. The first insight that who we are is a package composed of many different qualities. I saw clearly that I have strengths and weaknesses, skillful qualities and unskillful ones. All of them make up the Joseph package. Each one of us is like this. The second realization is that I do not have to judge or even change or fix the conditioning. Seeing that I could accept the whole package has been tremendously freeing. Therapy entailed looking directly at and exploring the particular content of my conditioning, but the attitude of simply accepting it was enhanced by my meditation practice. We sit, we observe, and we learn to accept what we see because we understand that whatever arises is not self, it is not I. It does not belong to anybody. It is just conditioning. So, we do not have to be bound up with it or identified with it. We do not even have to change anything because acceptance and awareness gives us the space to make choices, to act on those things that are skillful and simply to let the other things be. So I see psychotherapy and meditation as being quite complementary, though distinct. To value the distinction is helpful, especially on a retreat, so that we do not spend a lot of time lost in the content, however interesting it might be. Right. Okay, I think I can get the last part of this out and still have time to pull a card. So thank you for sticking with me through this process. I'm also loving the names of the folks who are here. That's awesome. Yogi Mind. So I'm reading from Joseph Goldstein's book, Insight Meditation, The Practice of Freedom by Joseph Goldstein. It was published in 1994. If you think that mental illness only happens out there to someone else, you might have another look at the life of your mind. When we watch our mind closely in meditation, we learn that we call mental illness, or what we call mental illness, is only a more extreme manifestation of something that has happened to us all. Years ago, I was doing a month-long retreat in my room at the Insight Meditation Society. After a week or so, I started hearing conversations coming through the heating pipes. I thought they were somehow traveling from the center's kitchens through the pipes up to my room, which is quite far away. The conversations were, I believed, about a couple, both friends of mine. I thought I was hearing that the husband had killed the wife and that nobody wanted to tell me because they didn't want to disturb my meditation practice. Day after day, these conversations came up through the pipes. It got so bad that I actually went down to ask the kitchen staff what was going on. Why isn't anybody telling me anything? It seems so real. We call this delusive imbalance yogi mind. Meditators on retreat sometimes experience so intense an identification with thoughts and feelings that they lose all perspective. Stephen Smith, a teaching colleague and friend, told me another wonderful yogi mind story. He and his wife, Michelle, were teaching a meditation retreat in Australia. The room he was staying in had two doors coming from different directions. One door opened off a bigger hall where the retreatants would often do walking meditation. One evening, Michelle came in to speak with Stephen, and he casually asked her why she came in a different door from the one she usually used. Just at that time, a retreatant had entered the adjacent walking room and overheard Stephen say, "Why did you use that door?" This was at 10 o'clock at night. At 4 in the morning, the yogi went into Stephen's room, woke him up and said, "Why did you ask me which door?" All night long, the retreatant's mind had been obsessing about why he should or should not have come in that door. you can see how important it is to recognize yogi mind, both in the more obvious cases when it happens on retreat and the many more subtle examples of it in our daily lives. Whenever you cannot let go of a thought or an emotion that is inappropriate to the actual situation, and when identification with the thought is intense and obsessive, then recognizing this phenomenon as yogi mind helps you come out of it sooner than you would otherwise. Our mind can so easily get stuck in its own projections. Understanding how we have become stuck can make the difference between mental imprisonment and mental freedom. Such obsessive identification really is not so different from mental illness, and it can actually lead to quite severe mental disorder. When our mind identifies compulsively with particular thoughts or feelings, it becomes addicted. In those times, there is no ability to disidentify with the thoughts or feelings, and so our mind is not afforded the great protection of mindfulness. We are swept up into a vortex of thoughts and emotions, with no place of rest or ease in that state. Oh my gosh, 3 minutes. Identification can also obstruct our communication with others. We become identified with a point of view, and that leads to anger, defensiveness, or aggression in communication. The problem is not the content of what we are saying, but the sense of strong identification with the content. When there is little mindfulness and strong attachment, identification with our particular opinions creates polarity. So it seems useful not to split mental illness off into somewhere out there. We all feel its affliction to some degree or another, and meditation can be the tool whereby we make ourselves sane. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I got about 2 minutes. I want to pull a card. I want to read it. I love that I have 7 folks. I'm going to end this, or try to end it, unless you guys are all right with me extending it a little bit. But my goal was to end it so that I could repost it. So if you want to stay in touch, if you want to reach out, please feel free to add me or send me a message, or follow me, okay? And we'll stay in touch. I really appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to dedicate this to all y'all. I'm going to dedicate this to the 140 folks who came through. And I'm going to pull this card. So, boom, boom, I'm going to pull it right from, I feel like it's this one. Boom. Night Wind. Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing. 23. Okay. Oh my gosh, I got 1.5 minutes. I'm not really stressed. Night Wind. All right, I'm gonna hold it up. Facing Fear, Subconscious Release and Healing. This card relates to the disturbed sleep patterns, vivid dreams, or nightmares that you've been experiencing. Something is troubling you, yet you are not openly acknowledging this either to yourself or others. This unresolved issue has created fear and anxiety, which you have yet to resolve. Because of this, your subconscious mind is processing the issue as you sleep. The fear resurfacing in your dreams time and time again in various forms and guises. This is your subconscious mind's way of dealing with the issue and forcing you to face your fear. On some level, this is helpful. However, the only way this issue can be resolved is by consciously facing your fear. First, truly acknowledge your fear. Express it in detail by writing it down. Then, share it by talking about it with someone you trust. My gosh. All right, well, I'm going to fail at this whole one hour practice thing because my thingy went to sleep again, which is a technical term for my computer. Oh, give me 1 second. You ever feel like you just fall off the planet? I'll redo the, I'll kind of go over the main parts again. All right, wow, we just broke the hour, so there we go. It will be a couple minutes left. So I'm going to start over because that's where my brain, like, I may have lost all of this. So what card is it? 23. Okay. And get this going so I can already be turning a page. Ah, there we go. Okay. So, I don't know where I went because I got distracted by life. So let's start again. So this is the card we pulled. It's Night Wind. I developed my own Night Wind, by the way. That's a whole other TikTok. Facing fear, subconscious, release, and healing. So this card relates to the disturbed sleep patterns, vivid dreams, or nightmares that you've been experiencing. Something is troubling you, yet you are not openly acknowledging this either to yourself or others. This unresolved issue has created fear and anxiety, which you have yet to resolve. Because of this, your subconscious mind is processing the issue as you sleep. The fear resurfacing in your dreams time and time again in various forms and guises. This is your subconscious mind's way of dealing with the issue and forcing you to face your fear. On some level, this is helpful. However, the only way this issue can be resolved is by consciously facing your fear. First, truly acknowledge your fear. Express it in detail by writing it down. Then, share it by talking about it with someone you trust. This simple process takes some courage, but it is well worth it. Acknowledging and expressing your fear is the first major step towards healing this issue. You will find that all will be resolved soon. And the affirmation that comes with it: I share my fears and concerns with those I trust and love. There is nothing to fear. There is only love. All will soon be resolved. I am safe. I am loved. I face my fear and feel it dissolve into a pool of love. And that is the reading. TikTok wants me to draw a puzzle piece over to keep me going, but that's our whole practice. We kind of went 3 minutes over, but I think it was worth it because we finished off that section and we covered a lot of bases here. But essentially, what I loved about it and what I loved seeing get tied in is that Joseph, in what he had written back there in 1994, he was talking about his dreams and how he had gone into a practice of analyzing them and that sort of thing. And then to get that card that sort of talks about how we process, how we can process our energy and our situations in our dreams. I mean, that's true for me anyway, because, I have something that's like overall my life, I've had what's called night terrors. I go through cycles that when I'm not feeling great, or I'm under the weather, or I'm going through something mentally, it does carry over into my sleep. So that's part of, at the beginning I shared some acronyms like PTSD, BPD, that sort of thing. Like, that's trauma, right? And these are the things that happen to us. So that's what I love about the practice, because they happen to us, and things have happened to everybody. Everybody who will listen to this, or everybody who actually has like a life, will know that they've been through stuff that they could determine as traumatizing, right? We have tools, like I liked when it talked about the psychological stuff, and that there's a distinction between that, because when we go to therapy, right, all we're doing is we're going to see somebody who is allegedly and apparently trained to help us navigate our thoughts and feelings and emotions. Is that what always happens? No. I've been through therapy for decades. Therapy as a tool is only as effective as the connection between the therapist and the person receiving therapy. And I'll tell you, I have seen more BS and buffoonery in therapists. I've had a full spectrum of experiences with therapy, including, like, for example, in 2018, when someone who was a professional really took advantage of my emotional and my mental state and what I was going through to turn the screws, to put the boots to me. And what I know now in hindsight is that this woman, this therapist, this doctor, so to speak, she needed to feel power. And what I looked like, what I sounded like, where I came from, I looked like someone that she could mess with. And it's unfortunate. But I don't throw the tool out with the fool, so to speak. In having really positive therapeutic experiences, I was able to tell right away that this woman was abusive, that she was not professional, that she was chasing money, that she was chasing power, that she really just figured, oh, I've been doing it for so long, there's nothing you can get over on me. And the truth is, we're all people. We all make mistakes. We all live with bias. And it's really like the actions we take for ourselves, in ourselves, about ourselves, that determine how we show up in the world. So I really want to thank you guys. I noticed a lot of you have been here for a while, so I'll thank you by name. I'll mention there was like 173 people that come through, which is amazing. There were like 58 hearts. It looks like 2 people added me as a friend, which is incredible. If you look up my username on any of the social platforms, you'll see me. You'll see all sorts of stuff that I've said and done and thought and felt and experienced, and you'll see drama and trauma and gossip and music and disco and labels and fables, because ultimately my goal, and I've been a lifelong volunteer. I got my start in childhood, helping women flee domestic violence situations. I am a person who's experienced that and been violated and experienced violence personally. But I'm either dumb and I never learned my lesson, or I like to believe I'm quite wonderful and that I'm very passionate about justice. And even if it's perceived injustice, I believe every single human, every animal, every living thing can recover from it and can heal from it. So I try to practice non-judgment for me and others. But I want to thank Abel Royal. Hope I say these things right. Larry the Lobster. My gosh, I've got stories about rock lobster, Larry, that I'd love to share. Tanika, Erica. I'm going to take a second just to pull this apart. Samim Shaheen. I hope I'm saying that right. Sundar Singh. Dildo. I thought I was given a name at birth that, is a challenge, but no, I'm just kidding. I love that name, by the way. And Samir and Nay. I really appreciate that you're here with me in this moment, and I look forward to connecting with you again. So I may be able to edit and repost this, but you know what? It was worth the extra time and space and pace, and the replay will always be on YouTube. If you go over there, you'll also see, like, I've been in community television for like 100 years, even though I'm only turning 50 this year. But I really love just farting around with stuff like that. So I put some music, I have some image, I have a little opener, little closer. It looks like a whole thing, but essentially it's just a replay of this chapter. I use that playlist and other ones and podcasts as wellness tools so that because the World Wide Web is like, it can be like a horrifying place, and it can be very traumatizing depending on what we see in our news feeds or our FYPs. So, if I can't feel trust, if I can't perceive trust, well, I know what I say, and I know how I feel, and I know the sound of my voice, so that gives me an opportunity to re-listen and review those things. But as I said in the beginning of this video, for many years I couldn't read books. It wasn't that I couldn't read, it's that I couldn't be present. I couldn't stay focused. I wouldn't have been able to pick up on it. And it was just before, or it was just in December, that I thought, well, shit, I'll read a chapter a day. And I'll record myself doing it. That's what keeps me real. That's what keeps me accountable to me. But I love accumulating all the practice so that I can see evidence that I'm practicing, because one of the biggest things that I can get lost in for myself is forgetting the very hard work that I do every day. So I don't want anybody else, no matter what we have said or thought or felt or reacted to or done, because everybody has the capability to be an ogre, a monster, a troll. But often when we're seeing that, what we're seeing is the fear, the depression, the low self-esteem, right? So by practicing and holding space for others, it's a wonderful way of getting braver to show up for ourselves, to take space. So I like to say I'm not here to compete or compare. There's room for all of us, but that's my practice, right? Sabek is a term for it. One love, you know. And trust me, depending how I look, depending where I'm at, depending what I'm doing, hearing all of that come out of my mouth it can be jarring. But what I love about Joseph Goldstein, and as I say, so Joseph Goldstein, Richard Alpert, Sharon Salzberg, many other people. Names like Raghu Marcus, Ram Dass, Krishna Das, all these folks. What I love about the choice of material is that these are folks who in the 60s and 70s were living their lives, doing their thing, and then met each other one way or another, but they all kind of went over and practiced and learned in the East and then brought it over to the West. So things like Buddhism and Reiki, and these are things that are inherent in every human being. But I'll tell you right now, I grew up in Owen Sound, Ontario, small town, 25,000 people maybe. It's been 20,000 for like as long as I can remember. I spent my first 20 years there. And I've lived in Ottawa, Canada, which is the national capital region. It's been about 1 million people. It's said to be growing, and it'll be 1.7 million soon. And I've been here for nearly 30 years. And the last 5 years, I'll tell you, oh my gosh, in the last 10, technology is a gift, but we are all learning. Like, I was online and doing blogs and stuff like this, and just like this, just living my life, putting my life out there, and didn't have anybody in my immediate circle following me. And then during the old pandemic, the whole globe experience where we were all more isolated and divided and stuck, it felt like all eyes were on me. And so I invite you to go and explore Angus by Design on any platform, and make sure that it's connected to me. Check out, explore, see how long the account's been open. But you'll see a whole bunch of experiences where I describe it as that I was passed around like a football. But that's what happens when we're speaking up or speaking out. We're vulnerable. And I'll tell you, it attracts all kinds. But I'm thankful for every minute of every day. And I'm thankful for all of you, and I'm thankful for this platform. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to go and enjoy the day. I can hear dogs barking. I can see the sun shining. My truck needs to be cleaned real bad. But thank you for joining. If you'd like to join more, I think in March I'm going to change up my practice a little bit, and I'll post ahead of time what I'll be doing and where I'll be going. So if people want to create a little satsang or a little community of practice, or you'd like to sort of have a steady pace about it, feel free to let me know. And if you have any questions about Reiki or guided meditation or any of those things, please also feel free to reach out and let me know. So Take care, everyone.